The first time I saw him, I was exhausted, my feet aching after a 12-hour shift at La Bella Notte. The restaurant's marble floors had been unforgiving, and my black uniform dress clung to my skin with the remnants of spilled wine and pasta sauce. I smelled like garlic and sweat, my honey blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun that had long lost its shape. It was nearly midnight, and most of the other servers had left. I stayed behind to help Marco, the owner, who had been kind enough to hire me 6 months ago when I'd arrived in Chicago, with nothing but a suitcase and secrets that weighed heavier than any luggage. "Lily, take this to table 9, then you can go," Marco said, sliding a bottle of 30-year-old Macallan across the bar. "Last table." I nodded, too tired to speak, and lifted the silver tray. Table 9 was in the private alcove, a section reserved for patrons who didn't want to be seen, the kind who tipped well but whose eyes you avoided meeting. The lighting dimmed as I approached, the plush carpet muffling my footsteps. A hushed conversation ceased the moment I appeared, and that's when I felt it, a shift in the air, like oxygen being pulled from the room. 4 men sat around the table, 3 in dark suits who appeared to be cut from the same cloth. Broad shoulders, vigilant eyes, hands that never strayed far from their jackets. But the 4th man, he was different. He sat with his back to the wall, facing the entrance, a position I'd learned meant power. His suit wasn't just expensive, it was bespoke, molded to his frame like it had been created with him in mind. Charcoal gray against a crisp white shirt, the top button undone as if even fabric didn't dare constrict him. His hair was black as midnight, styled back to reveal a face that seemed carved from stone, all sharp angles and cold perfection. But it was his eyes that made me falter. Dark, bottomless. They fixed on me the moment I entered, tracking my movement with predatory focus. Not leering like the businessmen who sometimes patted my backside, but assessing, calculating, like I was a puzzle to solve or territory to map. "You're Macallan, sir," I said, placing the bottle down, careful to keep my hand steady. I felt his gaze burning into my skin as I arranged the glasses, wondering why the air suddenly felt too thick to breathe. "What's your name?" His voice was low, roughened at the edges but cultured, with the faintest trace of an accent I couldn't place. I made the mistake of looking up. Our eyes met, and something electric shot through me, a warning flare from every cell in my body. "Lily," I answered, my voice smaller than I intended. His lips curved, not quite a smile. "Lily," he repeated, as if tasting the word. "Like the flower," I nodded, wanting nothing more than to retreat, to escape those eyes that seemed to see right through me. "Sir, would you like me to pour?" I asked, desperate to end this interaction. He leaned back slightly. "Please." My hands trembled as I broke the seal on the bottle, pouring amber liquid into crystal. His eyes never left me, making my skin prickle with awareness. When I finished, I stepped back, clutching the tray to my chest like a shield. "Will there be anything else?" I asked, addressing no one in particular. "That will be all, Lily." He dismissed me, but as I turned to leave, he added, "For now." I escaped to the back room, leaning against the wall, heart hammering against my ribs. The intensity of his gaze had left me feeling exposed, as if he could see the secrets I kept buried. The reason I'd fled Boston, the reason I couldn't go back. "You okay?" Marco asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired." "Who is that man?" "The one at table 9. Marco's expression changed, a flicker of fear crossing his weathered face. "Alexander Volkov. He owns half the north side." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And not the legal half. Don't catch his attention, Lily. Men like him, they take what they want." Too late, I thought, remembering the way his eyes had tracked me, marked me. I left through the back door 30 minutes later, pulling my threadbare coat tighter against the autumn chill. The alley behind La Bella Notte was poorly lit, puddles from the afternoon rain reflecting the yellow glow of a distant street lamp. My apartment was 15 blocks away, but I couldn't afford a cab, not if I wanted to make rent next week. The sound of an engine purring to life made me freeze. A sleek black Mercedes idled at the end of the alley, its windows tinted to opacity. As I watched, the rear window rolled down, revealing that same devastating face, those same dark eyes. "It's late," Alexander Volkov said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the night air. "You shouldn't walk alone." I clutched my purse tighter. "I'll be fine." "That wasn't a suggestion, Lily." The car door opened. "Get in." Everything in me screamed to run, but where would I go? If Marco was right, this man owned these streets. So I approached the car, feeling like a moth drawn to a flame that would surely burn me to ashes. The interior was leather and warmth, the scent of expensive cologne mingling with something darker, something distinctly male. He sat across from me, one leg crossed over the other, studying me with those unreadable eyes. "Where do you live?" he asked. I hesitated, then gave him my address, watching as he relayed it to the driver without taking his eyes off me. "You're new to Chicago," he stated, not asked. 6 months, I admitted, wondering how he knew. "And before that?" My heart stuttered. "Boston." "Running from something?" His question hit too close to the truth, making my breath catch. "Just looking for a fresh start." His lips curved again, that same not-quite smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Everyone who comes to this city is running from something, Lily. The question is whether it's worth running from." The car moved smoothly through empty streets, the silence between us charged with unspoken questions. I stared at my hands, at the chipped nail polish and calluses from months of carrying trays, aware of how rough they looked compared to his manicured perfection. "You work hard," he observed, following my gaze to my hands. "I have bills to pay. And no one to help you pay them?" I looked up sharply. "I take care of myself." Something flashed in his eyes. Approval, perhaps, or amusement. Admirable. Rare, these days. The car slowed to a stop in front of my building, a crumbling brownstone with graffiti marring its facade. I reached for the door handle, eager to escape the confines of the car and the weight of his attention. "Thank you for the ride," I said stiffly. "Lily." My name on his lips made me pause. "I'll be seeing you again." It wasn't a question or even a promise. It was a statement of fact, delivered with absolute certainty. I got out without responding, feeling his eyes on my back as I hurried up the steps to the entrance. Only when I was inside, with the door locked behind me, did I allow myself to breathe. That night, I dreamt of dark eyes and hands that could either protect or destroy. I woke sweating, tangled in cheap sheets, with the certainty that something had irrevocably changed. I was right. The next morning, a package waited outside my door. No card, no note, just an elegant box tied with a black ribbon. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, lay a lily pendant on a silver chain, a perfect, delicate flower, captured in white gold and diamonds. A chill ran down my spine. He knew where I lived. He knew my name. And somehow, in the span of one brief encounter, I had caught the attention of a man who, according to Marco, took what he wanted. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have known, was that Alexander Volkov had recognized something in me that night, not the secrets I was keeping, not yet, but something else, something that made him see me not just as a tired waitress with worn hands, but as a replacement for what he had lost. And that realization would change everything. 3 days passed without incident. No more gifts appeared at my door, no black Mercedes waited in the alley. I began to believe that perhaps I had imagined the intensity of our encounter, that Alexander Volkov had forgotten me as quickly as he had noticed me. Until Friday night. La Belle Notte was packed, a private event taking over the main dining room. I moved between tables with practiced efficiency, smiling mechanically at guests who barely registered my existence. My feet ached, my lower back burned, but I kept moving. Tips would be good tonight, and I needed every dollar. "Lily?" Marco appeared beside me, his face tense. "Table 9, now," my stomach dropped. "Can't Sophia take it? I have 3 tables waiting for—" "He asked for you specifically." Marco's eyes held a warning, don't keep him waiting. I handed my tray to another server and made my way to the alcove, each step heavier than the last. The pendant he had given me hung around my neck, hidden beneath my uniform. I hadn't wanted to wear it, but something told me it would be dangerous to reject his gift. He sat alone this time, no associates surrounding him. A single glass of amber liquid sat untouched before him, and his eyes found mine the moment I entered, as if he had been waiting, counting the seconds until I appeared. "Mr. Volkov," I said, keeping my voice professional, distant. "Alexander," he corrected, the hint of accent curling around the syllables. "Sit, Lily." It wasn't a request. I glanced around nervously. "I'm working." "Not anymore. Not tonight." He gestured to the chair opposite him. "Marco understands." The implication was clear. Marco had no choice but to agree. Neither did I. I sat, perching on the edge of the chair, ready to flee though I knew there was nowhere to run. "You're wearing it," he said, his eyes dropping to my collar where the chain disappeared beneath the fabric. My hand instinctively rose to my throat. "How did you—" "Your posture changed when you came in. Your hand kept drifting to your neck. You're aware of its weight." His observation was precise, leaving no room for denial. I said nothing, unnerved by his scrutiny. "Why did you accept it?" The question caught me off guard. I didn't want to be rude." A low chuckle escaped him, the sound oddly warm for such a cold man. "You're afraid of me." "Should I be?" His eyes darkened. "Yes," he said simply. "But not for the reasons you think." Before I could ask what he meant, he reached across the table, his fingers brushing my cheek. I flinched, unable to help myself. "Someone hurt you," he observed, his voice hardening. "In Boston." I pulled back, panic fluttering in my chest. I should get back to work. "Tell me his name." There was danger in his tone now, a promise of violence that made my blood run cold. "It doesn't matter. It's in the past." I stood, needing distance. "Please, I need this job. I can't—" "Sit down, Lily." Again, not a request. "You misunderstand. Your job is not at risk." Reluctantly, I sank back into the chair. "In fact," he continued, "I have a proposition for you. One that would solve your financial concerns." "I'm not that kind of waitress," I said sharply. For a moment, he looked genuinely surprised, then something like respect flashed in his eyes. "I'm not offering to pay you for sex, Lily. I'm offering you a job. I have a job. One that has you living in a building with broken security and walking home alone at night." His jaw tightened. "I need a personal assistant, someone discreet, hardworking. Someone who understands the value of loyalty." I stared at him, disbelief warring with suspicion. "Why me? You don't know anything about me." "I know more than you think." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "I know you're 26 years old. I know you left Boston 4 days after filing a police report that was mysteriously withdrawn. I know you've been working 2 jobs since you arrived in Chicago and sending money to a P.O. box in Massachusetts every month." My blood turned to ice. "You've been investigating me, researching," he corrected, as if the distinction mattered. "I don't take risks, Lily, not with who I allow close to me." "And what makes you think I want to be close to you?" His lips curved in that not-quite smile. "The salary is 3 times what you make here. The hours are irregular, but the benefits, substantial. You would have an apartment in my building, security, protection." "Protection from what?" "From whoever you're running from." His eyes locked with mine. "From whoever put that look in your eyes." I should have said no. Should have walked away from the table, away from those penetrating eyes that seemed to see too much. But when Alexander mentioned the salary, 3 times what I made at the restaurant, all I could think about was Maddie, about the mounting medical bills and the treatment she needed. "I'll need to think about it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He reached into his jacket and produced a business card. Thick, cream-colored stock, with only a phone number embossed in black. "You have until tomorrow night." He placed it on the table between us, then stood. "I don't like to be kept waiting, Lily." I watched him leave, his movements fluid and controlled, like a predator confident in its territory. Only when he was gone did I realize I had been holding my breath. Marco appeared at my side almost immediately. "What did he want?" he asked, his voice hushed, fearful. "He offered me a job," I said, still staring at the door Alexander had disappeared through. Marco's face paled. "What kind of job?" His assistant. Relief washed over Marco's features. That's not what I expected. He hesitated. But Lily, men like Volkov, they don't separate business from pleasure. If he wants you as his assistant, he wants you in other ways too. I knew Marco was right. The way Alexander looked at me wasn't purely professional. There was hunger there, a possessiveness that both terrified and, if I was honest with myself, thrilled me. But I couldn't afford to be thrilled. Not with everything at stake. I haven't said yes, I told Marco, tucking the card into my pocket. But even as I said it, I knew what my answer would be. For Maddie, I would do anything. Even make a deal with the devil. I finished my shift in a daze, mechanically serving drinks and collecting plates, all while feeling the weight of the business card in my pocket. By the time I left, the night air had turned bitter with cold, a reminder that winter was coming. Winter meant higher heating bills, more medicine for Maddie's weak lungs, expenses I could barely cover with 2 jobs. The walk home seemed longer than usual, shadows stretching from alleyways like fingers. Twice, I thought I heard footsteps behind me, but when I turned, there was only emptiness. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. My apartment was cold and dark, the ancient radiator making more noise than heat. I turned on the single lamp beside my bed, its weak glow doing little to dispel the gloom. Then I took out the business card, running my thumb over the raised numbers, feeling the quality of the paper. 3 times my salary. An apartment with security. Protection. I picked up my phone and dialed the number I called every Thursday night. Hello? The voice on the other end was thin, fragile. Hi, Mrs. Peterson. It's Lily. How is she today? There was a pause, the sound of movement. She asked for you again. Wanted to know when you're coming home. My heart constricted. Can I talk to her? She's sleeping now. The new medication makes her drowsy. Mrs. Peterson's voice dropped. Lily. The doctor called. They're recommending a specialist in Chicago, actually. But the cost. How much? I asked, already knowing I couldn't afford it. When she told me the figure, I closed my eyes, despair washing over me. It was impossible. Unless... I'll figure it out, I promised. Tell Maddie I'll call again on Sunday. After hanging up, I sat on my bed, staring at Alexander's card. Then, with shaking fingers, I dialed. He answered on the first ring. You've decided. Not a question. As if he had been expecting my call, waiting for it. Yes, I said, the word catching in my throat. I accept your offer. Good. I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. Be ready at noon tomorrow. Someone will come for you. What should I bring? Nothing. Everything will be provided. The call ended abruptly, leaving me with the realization of what I had just done. I had agreed to work for a man I barely knew. A man who, by all accounts, was dangerous. A man who had investigated me, who seemed to know about my past. But not everything, I reassured myself. He couldn't know everything. Sleep eluded me that night. I tossed and turned, haunted by dark eyes and the phantom sensation of fingers brushing my cheek. When dawn finally broke, I was already awake, watching the pale light seep through my threadbare curtains. At exactly noon, a knock came at my door. I opened it to find a tall, broad-shouldered man in a suit, his expression impassive. Miss Lily Chen? He asked, his voice surprisingly gentle for someone so imposing. I nodded, clutching my small bag. Despite Alexander's instructions to bring nothing, I couldn't leave behind the few precious items I owned. The photograph of Maddie, the locket from my mother, and the envelope containing what little savings I had managed to accumulate. I'm Dmitri. Mr. Volkov sent me to escort you. He eyed my bag but said nothing, instead gesturing toward the stairs. The car is waiting. And it wasn't the Mercedes from before, but a sleek black SUV, its windows tinted against prying eyes. Dmitri opened the rear door for me, and I slid in, half expecting to find Alexander inside. But the car was empty save for the driver, a young man who nodded to me in the rearview mirror. We drove in silence, leaving my neighborhood behind, traveling deeper into the city's affluent north side. The buildings grew taller, cleaner, the streets wider and better maintained. Finally, we We pulled up in front of a towering glass structure that gleamed in the midday sun. "Monarch Tower," Dmitri said, noticing my awe.